which way do you usually say I remember? Is it with 기억해요 or 기억나요? So specifically the two verbs 기억하다 and 기억나다. Now, first of all, both of these ways can mean I remember, but this verb, the verb that it comes from, 기억하다, is misused about 9 out of 10 times by beginning learners. So let's fix that. This question was suggested by a Patreon supporter, so thank you to my Patreon supporters as well as channel members. You help to keep this channel running so that I can pay to keep the lights on to film these videos. Literally, there are 3 lights around me. Okay, so first let's start with the verb 기억하다. 기억 means a memory and 하다 means to do. And you'll use it whenever you're actively or consciously remembering something. So this is almost like you're putting in effort to remember something. So because of that, you can think of this one as meaning to remember something by yourself. By that I mean nothing else or no one else caused you to remember something. You just consciously remembered it. For example, you would use this one if you say that you wanted to remember something. Remember, since this is used to say something that you're actively or consciously remembering. You would also use it to say that you didn't want to remember something, because that would be something that you're consciously doing. You're trying to remember, or you don't want to remember. And the way you use this is whatever it is that you're remembering, whether it's a person or a thing, you're going to mark that using the object marker. So that's going to be after a consonant or l after a vowel. So if you were remembering your friend 철수, you could say 철수를 기억해요. Or again, since this is 기억하다, you could say 기억하다 or 기억을 하다. That's what the parentheses mean. It's optional. Next, we have the verb 기억나다 or 기억이 나다. I should note though, when you're saying this without the subject marker here, e, you're going to say it as 기억나요. Due to sound change rules, this would be pronounced as this way. This also uses the word 기억, which means memory, but instead of being an active thing that you're doing or a conscious thing that you're remembering something, this is considered to be passive. So instead of you putting effort into trying to remember something or consciously or actively remembering something, instead the memory itself comes to you on its own. Here, 나다 means to occur or to come to mind. So literally, a memory occurs or a memory comes to mind. So again, if you remember something just because it came to you and not because you were trying to remember it, or consciously or actively remembering it, then you're gonna wanna use this one instead of this one. In addition, because 나다 means to come to mind, so a memory comes to mind, you cannot use this form by saying cannot remember something with this form. At least you wouldn't use it by literally saying cannot. So let me give you a quick example of that with 2 sentences. You could either say 기억 못해요. So literally, I cannot remember using 기억하다. Or you could say, the memory doesn't come to my mind, 기억이 안 나요. So both of these can translate in English as I can't remember, but have different nuances. So this one is like you're actively unable to remember it. You're trying, but you can't. And this one is simply nothing's coming up. Let me get a little more space. Here, both of these mean I remember 철수. So we have 철수를 기억해요 and 철수가 기억나요. Since this form, 기억이 나다, is not used when you're actively remembering something, it therefore cannot use the object marker to mark who or what it is that you're remembering. Instead, you would use the subject marker to mark who or what you remember. So instead of 철수를 기억해요, you would do 철수가 기억나요. You would not do 철수를 기억나요. That wouldn't make sense. You might be wondering then, which of these should I use? Well, let me ask you, which one of these would you use if you're just walking down the street and suddenly you remembered something? That's right, this one right here. And which one of these would you use when you're trying really hard to remember something? That's right. Now, this is all well and good, but most of the time, you're going to end up using this one, because this one will sound more natural whenever it can be used. By that I mean, it's going to sound more natural to say that you remember something by saying 기억나요 than it will be to say 기억을 해요. Now, there are situations though when you really need to use one or the other. For example, if you're making a command, then the only one that you could use would be 기억하다, since that one's actively doing something. You can't tell someone else to a memory come to mind you of something that happened. It doesn't make sense. So you could say 기억해줘, remember me, but you couldn't say 기억이 나죠. So are there any other differences that you know of between these two verbs? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in another episode. 그럼 다음에 또 봐.